All right, seniors. All right, so here we go. Look, starting in 1960, the energy of the movement, of the civil rights movement, is going to kind of shift away from the older people to the younger people, to the college students. And they're going to be the heart of the movement. And in the 1950s, right, you had a lot of sort of organization and involvement from the church ladies, from lawyers, from pastors like Martin Luther King Jr. They were the leaders of the movement. And many of them, of course, are continuing to provide leadership into the 1960s and 7, of course, they don't go away, right? But in terms of where a lot of the excitement and the new ideas are coming from is going to be from college students starting in 1960, all right? And the protest movement is going to be centered there. Of course, first, especially among black college students, but then ultimately more and more white college students are going to get involved as well, okay? Whereas the turning point is February of 1960, okay? So there were 4 college freshmen. They're attending the all-black college, A&T College, in Greensboro, North Carolina, okay? And they go into the Woolworth department store on February 1st of 1960, and they go up, and there's like a soda deli type of thing within the department store where you can order food. They go up to the counter, they sit down. Well, they're not supposed to do that, right? The counter is segregated, only for white people, okay? They're not allowed to sit there. Well, they go in, they sit down, and they just sit there, and nobody serves them, and they're just sitting there. Now, there's a black woman behind the counter, and she gets really anxious because she's afraid some kind of riot is going to break out. She's afraid she's going to get fired just because she's black. So she's like trying to show that she doesn't support them. She's like saying, look, you're stupid. You don't understand what you're doing. This is ignorant, right? It's not the way to do this. Okay. You know, but they're just sitting there. There's a police guard behind them. He's sort of like pacing back and forth, like he's got a club, you know, policemen carry clubs back then. He's like hitting he's like hitting it in the palm of his hand. Nobody knows what's going to happen, right? Well, nothing happens. They just sit there. The store closes early. They're half an hour early, so they can kick them out. They're like at 5 p.m. The young men go back to college, and they're heroes, okay? The whole town had been holding its breath all day to see what happened. The next day, 24 black students go back to the counter to sit there. So this is the beginning of what they call the sit-ins, where you're challenging the system simply by sitting in a place where, according to segregation, you're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to sit, okay? The idea for this, the training for this, we could trace to this thing called the Nashville Group, okay? The Nashville Group was just a group of activists who were trying to implement, they were studying like what Mahatma Gandhi had done in India in terms of trying to push for Indian independence from Britain, and doing so through peaceful resistance, right? And what that means is that even if you are faced with violence, you don't react to it, okay? And all this is very consistent with the ideas and the methods that Martin Luther King Jr. has been developing since the mid-1950s, right? And had implemented successfully in the Montgomery bus boycott. All right. So that's where some of this is coming from, this Nashville Group, all right? And it just sort of so happens that it fits in with what was going on with Martin Luther King Jr. too. All right. So what happened in Greensboro, the sit-in there, it's really inspiring to young people. This is something that anyone can do at any time. And so what you start to see these all over the country, well, in the South, wherever there's segregation, young people going in and challenging the system of segregation by sitting where they're not supposed to be. So these sit-ins are just spread like wildfire, going all over the place. A lot of people are very young involved with this, 16 years old, whatever. But 17, 18, 19. So different ages, right? But young people. And then this is spontaneous, right? So this lady, Ella Baker, decides, look, there's a lot of excitement and energy over this. We really need to come together, and we need to pull students together from all over the country and organize this. So she was an executive director of something called the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. So she's already involved in sort of some activism and some organization and stuff like that, grassroots stuff, right? Sort of stuff. So she organizes this conference to bring the students together. She gets 300 people to come. And they come from all over the place, but they come primarily from black colleges. But they also get 19 white college students to come, okay? And what they're doing, and they're all Northern, and what they're doing is they are studying, how are we, what is the kind of nonviolent methods that we're going to use, and then they're training, basically, for how to implement them. And they create something called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SNCC, okay? And so this is so that to make sure, so we can, so the sit-ins, they'll be consistent, right? We won't have any rogue people that start fights because somebody tries to hit them or threaten. The whole point was you have to train for this emotionally because it's really hard not to react in violence when you're facing violence. Right? And that was the whole point. It had to be that you didn't react even if you were facing violence. Okay? So they're training for all this, all right? Now, some of the older black people who are activists say this is ridiculous because these kids are all going to get arrested, which, of course, many of them do. The community is going to have to bail them out. If maybe they're going to have trials. We're going to have to pay for their court fees. And Thurgood Marshall, right, the guy that was able to get the Plessy versus Ferguson overturned, says this is a waste of money, this is a waste of resources, it's a waste of time, okay? But it is incredibly exciting for young people and incredibly empowering, right? And so you have a huge participation in this sit-in movement, and you get, we think 70,000 students involved in it, okay? And they are sitting in places from Illinois and in Ohio and Nevada, all over the South as well. So all over the country this is happening, and it's happening at lunch counters, in parks, at pools, at beaches, at restaurants, going into white churches, all sorts of places that they're going into to challenge the whole system of segregation, to say, look, especially like a church, how can that be segregated? Like you're totally betraying your ideals of Christianity and human dignity. So look, they're doing it everywhere, okay? And it's hugely successful in terms of the numbers of people that are involved in it, all right?